Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, True Crime and Felines. For my returning subscribers, welcome back my feline friends. If you are new here, my name is Brandy, and every Friday I bring you a true crime case or mystery with one or more of my fabulous felines. So I have an update for the fans out there. On my Q&A video I did last month, I stated that about half of my videos get demonetized due to the content, the true crime content. I don't want to tame down the videos just so they're ad friendly, because what's a true crime case without the horrid details, right? So some of you have reached out and asked me if there was another way to support the channel, such as like Patreon or a one-time donation type thing. First, I want to say you guys are awesome. I really didn't expect that, but have I told you you're awesome lately? Anyway, I've made a membership on YouTube. It's only one level right now, and it's only 99 cents a month. And if you join that membership, you get access to loyalty badges, and there are specialized emojis that only members can use in the chats and comments. And then every video, if you're a member, I will give you a shout out and show your name if you want, as a thank you. And so being a feline friend as a subscriber, you will then become a feline fan as a member. For those of you that just want to make like a one-time donation, you can go on over to a website called Buy Me a Coffee. The reason I chose that website is because you do not have to have an account to make a donation, and I was just trying to make things as easy as possible for you guys. So the link is in the description if you want to support me there as well. Now please know there is zero obligation in any of these. I'm just putting them out there for people who are interested. So we're going to start here, and then maybe in the future we'll see where we can go. Okay, so this week's case was a suggestion by Josair or Josair. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's Josair Montez. So thank you for your suggestion. A young woman goes missing in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and found dismembered a few days later. Now the finger is pointed at somebody she considered a friend, but what the hell is the motive? So, sorry, Fred. Let's get started. So Ashley Young was a 31-year-old woman living in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Ashley was bright and a friendly person and really only saw the good in people. She worked at a local call center but had recently just signed up for college classes to increase her career potential. Now Ashley had just found a new apartment and she was really excited to get the paper signed and to move in. So on November 29th, Ashley was actually supposed to meet her mother there at the apartment to sign the papers because her mother was going to co-sign on the apartment for her. But Ashley never showed up to that meeting. So Ashley's mother, Christine, had this mother's intuition that something was very wrong because this was not like Ashley. She attempted to call Ashley's cell phone many times but never received an answer. Now Christine, Ashley's mom, would end up calling a guy named Jared Chance. Now Jared Chance was actually Ashley's friend who she had been visiting the night before they were supposed to meet. Now Jared didn't answer the phone right off, so Christine left a message for him stating, "Is my daughter still with you? And if not, do you know where she's at?" Now Christine had sent a text then to Ashley and told Jared on the voicemail that if she didn't hear from either one of them in the next 10 minutes, she's going to go to the police. Now, Jared Chance was 30 years old and he was living in Grand Rapids, Michigan, and he was just a friend of Ashley's. There was nothing romantic between them that we know of. Now, as a teenager, Jared had a lot of run-ins with the law. He had driving offenses, shoplifting offenses, and possession of legal substances. But as he got older, it seemed to get worse. In 2011, the police were called to his home where he still lived with his parents and his little brother, Conrad. Apparently, his parents had called the police saying that Jared was in a rage and punching the wall and throwing things. Now, Jared would end up throwing a punch at one of the officers and hitting him in the head, and that ended up getting Jared tasered and handcuffed. Jared spent the night in jail and then was let out the next day. By 2016, Jared and his younger brother Conrad, who they were about 5 years apart in age, they started getting into a lot of fights, and those fights would turn physical, and they would end up beating each other up a lot. At one particular fight, Jared actually had a blowtorch and was holding it into Conrad's face, telling him he was going to kill him. And another time, Jared beat Conrad with a stick. Now, later in 2016, the police were called once again. Apparently, they were called a lot to Jared's parents' residence, but this time it wasn't over a fight. Jared was into drugs, and he was actually found unresponsive in their backyard and not breathing. Jared's mother was trying her best to do CPR, but it took the paramedics getting there and bringing him back to life. Now, after he recovered that same year in 2016, Jared seemed to not learn his lesson on drugs, and he would end up moving to Grand Rapids after he was attacked at his parents' house. 3 men had apparently pulled up and started beating Jared with a baseball bat over a drug deal gone bad. Jared was very prone to violent outbursts. Many people knew this and his bizarre behavior, but Ashley was his friend anyway. Ashley believed Jared when Jared would tell her that he just couldn't seem to catch a break. Because again, Ashley saw the good in everyone. So she had traveled to Grand Rapids on November 28th to hang out with Jared. So after Ashley's mom, Christine, left the voicemail for Jared, she did receive a text back from him. Jared, in his text, had stated that Ashley had accidentally left her phone at the bar and that she had left his house, was on her way to the bar to get her phone, and was probably just running late. He would assure Christine that Ashley was alive and well, and actually would give Christine a few phone numbers to try and get a hold of Ashley. And he stated he just talked to Ashley as well. But Christine would try these phone numbers, and they either ended up being fake or just made up or the wrong number. After this interaction, Christine decided to go straight to the police. So she went to the police in Kalamazoo, Michigan, where Ashley lived, and filed a missing persons report. However, at first the police didn't take the report because not enough time had passed and it had been less than 24 hours. So Christine decided before she could refile the missing persons report when the time had lapsed, she was going to go to Grand Rapids and look for her daughter herself. She went straight to Jared's house in Grand Rapids and actually did talk to Jared in person. And Jared had told them that they kind of were bar hopping the night before and had ended up at the last bar named Mulligan's in the early morning hours of November 29th. So Christine would head to the Mulligan's bar and talk to the manager, and they would watch the security footage together. And on the security footage, it did show Ashley and Jared together, but there was nothing amiss. There was no arguing, there was no fighting. It just seemed like they were 2 friends having a very good time. So Christine would take a copy of the footage and she would go back to Kalamazoo to file the missing persons report, and this time the police did take it. And it seemed, by all intents and purposes, that Jared was the last person to see Ashley alive. Now, Jared was getting increased pressure from Christine to, tell her where her daughter was, and apparently Jared did not like this pressure, so he ended up calling his parents and having them pick him up. His parents lived in Holland, which is about 30 miles away from Grand Rapids, and so they would show up at his house with his younger brother Conrad. Now, when they picked up Jared would have a couple boxes with him, and Conrad would state that there were plastic bags in some of the boxes a mop and other cleaning items that he was loading into the car. So then Jared got into the car with his parents and went to his parents' house. Now, a couple days later, on December 2nd, Jared's father would walk into the Grand Rapids Police Department with Jared, and he stated that his son was being harassed on social media about the whereabouts of Ashley because Ashley was still missing, and that he wanted to talk to police about it. When a policeman just asked the simple question to Jared of, when is the last time you saw Ashley, Jared's father flew into a rage and told him that Jared's not talking to anybody without a lawyer. Well, that ended the questioning right then and there. After that comment, Jared and his father left, and they went back to Jared's rental house in Grand Rapids. Jared's rental house was a 2-unit rental house. So there was somebody that rented the upstairs, and Jared rented the middle part, and then there was the actual basement in the house for storage. Jared's neighbor, who rented the upstairs portion of the house, said that he kept smelling a strong odor coming from the basement, and so he went down to the basement to investigate. He said he got down the stairs and he saw a tarp and it had blood on it. So at that point, his neighbor retreated back upstairs and called the police. And then after all that happened, Jared and his father arrived back at the house, and Jared started unpacking the boxes that he had put in his parents' car back inside his rental house. So later that night, after the police took the report from Jared's neighbor, they actually had gone and got a search warrant. And when the search warrant came in, they decided to go to Jared's house to execute it. Jared was sleeping and he woke up to police banging on his door. So the police went right down into the basement of the rental house and they found the tarp with blood on it. When they pulled back the tarp, they found a torso. Just a torso. No arms, no legs, no head. A torso. And then outside Jared's door on a landing, almost like a deck type thing, they found a box with a plastic bag in it that his younger brother Conrad talked about, and that contained arms and legs, no hands and feet, but just arms and legs that presumably went to the torso. So Jared was then taken into custody and charged with mutilation of a dead body and concealing a death at that point. The police were not done, however, because they learned that Jared had spent a couple days at his parents' house in Holland. So they executed a search warrant for his parents' house. At his parents' house, they found boxes of cleaning supplies, and underneath a couch, they found a reciprocating saw that had blood and flesh on it. And in the parents' car, they found droplets of blood. So everything was collected and sent to the lab. And the results came back that, you guessed it, it was Ashley. Of course, Ashley's family and friends were absolutely devastated. So Jared was end up being charged with open murder and 4 counts of tampering with evidence. Now, later in the trial, witnesses would state that Jared would often brag that he knew how to kill someone and get away with it. Jared's brother Conrad would go on the witness stand to state that Jared was actually obsessed with this revolver he had. That he actually hung out with Jared and Ashley a couple days before she died. And while he was hanging out with him, Jared had that revolver and he actually pointed at Conrad and pulled the trigger 5 times. Now, luckily, the gun was not loaded. Now, Ashley had witnessed this, and Conrad stated that Ashley had looked at Jared and be like, "You are not supposed to do that. Just stop." Now, Conrad would go on to state that when he went with his parents to pick up Jared on December 1st, that Jared was actually waiting outside his rental house, and he had a very disturbed look on his face, that he was helping Jared put these boxes into the car, that no one asked Jared what was in them. Now, Conrad then would drop the bombshell that the night of December 1st, when Jared was at his parents' house, they sat around the kitchen table and Jared admitted and told his parents what he did to Ashley. Now, after this came out, Jared's parents, James and Barbara, would be charged with perjury and being accessories after the fact to this crime. Police stated that Jared's parents knew from Jared's own confession that Jared cut Ashley's body into pieces, but they did not disclose this information in their initial questioning. It wasn't until Conrad stated that fact that's when the truth apparently came out. Now, Jared had a probable cause hearing on January 11th, 2019. Authorities stated that based on the evidence found in Jared's rental home and that there was blood in the kitchen, that it was likely that Jared had shot Ashley in the head and then dismembered her. Now, the shooting was based on circumstantial evidence of what they found in the home, because even at this time, Ashley's head, neck, hands, and feet weren't found yet. What they did know, based on autopsies and experts' opinion, was that Ashley was probably dead for at least 12 hours before she was dismembered. So Jared could have done it the early morning hours of November 30th, or he could have done it with the help of his parents, which is more disturbing. Now, authorities had surveillance video and receipts at Jared at various stores where he was buying beer, black plastic bags like the ones seen in the boxes, and ammonia, which helps get blood stains out of things. And that was discovered that he did all that the day of November 29th, when Ashley was probably already dead. Jared was also caught on the CCTV putting an orange garbage bag into a public trash can before entering a store. The authorities were able to obtain that bag, and it contained several items that belonged to Ashley, including her blue jeans. Now, Jared kept pretty quiet through this whole thing and didn't really admit anything or give an explanation of what happened. So Jared was offered a plea deal in the beginning that he would admit guilt for killing Ashley, and then he would tell them where the rest of Ashley's remains were, and then he would only serve 31 years total. However, Jared refused this plea deal, so the trial began. On October 29th, 2019, Jared was found guilty of second-degree murder. Now, the reason he did not get first-degree murder is because they couldn't show proof that Jared was the one that actually killed Ashley, that he just did all these horrible things to her body after she was dead. But regardless of that, he was sentenced to 100 to 200 years in prison, which actually exceeded the normal sentencing guidelines. The judge stated that the harsh sentence was needed because Jared's brutality of the crime, the lack of remorse, and the judge even stated that Jared seemed to get pleasure from the gruesome testimony going on during the trial and the lies and the misrepresentation that he told to Christine, Ashley's mom. Now, he is eligible for parole, but only after 130 years. So, yeah, he's not getting out. Now, as far as Jared's parents, with their help in this crime, were only sentenced to 45 days in jail, but then they had a year of probation and a year of house arrest for their role in trying to cover up this crime. Now, authorities stated that Jared's parents had actually drove around with Jared disposing of evidence and probably pieces of Ashley's body as well. Ashley's blood was found in the bathroom and on a shower curtain in Jared's parents' house. Plus the saw, the reciprocating saw that had Ashley's blood and flesh on it, was found underneath her couch. So where exactly, like, it's almost like Jared started dismembering her body and then finished it at his parents' house. How screwed up is that? By the way, Jared's dad, his name is James. He was an Illinois policeman for over 20 years, and he retired in 1989. So, just throwing that out there. Now, Jared would appeal his sentence, but by January of 2021, the Michigan Appeal Court would unanimously deny his appeals. Now, as for the motive behind this, it's still very unclear. Only Jared knows. Jared has continued to keep silent about everything even after his conviction, and he will not tell authorities where the remaining parts of Ashley are. Ashley's mother thinks that Jared likes to torture people, and this is his way of further causing hurt and pain to the family. Now, what was found of Ashley was cremated and given to her mother, but the family states that they still consider her missing because she's not complete. Her head, neck, hands, and feet has still never been found to this day. The family is offering a reward for any information leading to the rest of Ashley. So what are your thoughts on this disturbing case? Why do you think Jared did it? He likely killed his probably only friend in this world. Is this just a case of being mentally disturbed or something else going on? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments down below. If you would like to become a feline friend, please hit that subscribe button. And if you would like to become a feline fan, please hit the join button below this video. And I will be back next Friday with another true crime case or mystery with our felines. All right, thanks guys. Bye.